back with another special edition of the Vulcan Nation podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Barnhart, Director of Alumni Relations. With me today, we have a very special guest, Ms. Blayre Holmes Davis, class of 2012. She is the Director of Community Relations with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Blayre, thank you very much for joining us today on the Vulcan Nation podcast.
No, I'm happy to be on.
Awesome. So we like to get right down to business here, as they say, and jump right in and allow our guests to introduce themselves to our viewers, our listeners, and kind of describe yourself, who you were as a student at Cal U, and kind of, you know, where you are today.
Yes. So I will say, for me, Cal U is home for me. I'm not sure a lot of people know my mom has worked there for over 30 years. She retired 2 years ago. So I was born and raised on that campus, attended a lot of reading classes up there when I was younger, and then went to undergrad at Cal U. And I majored in communications and graduated. And so Cal U is just always home for me when I think of just that place and the relationships that I was able to build there, and just the people that I'm still close with today. And, you know, for me, my parents still live very close to that area. So sometimes I drive past campus. But yeah, so just a lot of great and fond memories of my alma mater. And today I'm the Director of Community Relations for the Steelers. And especially when I think of my experience at Cal U and just the trajectory of my career path, I think of just a lot of time and a lot of relationships that I have from the area.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Well, first of all, I can empathize with you about the feeling like you spent more time at Cal U than you did at home. Same boat, you know, for sure there. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, your role now and kind of the professional impact that you're making as the Director of Community Relations. Because, you know, like, you know, probably many of our listeners don't really think or understand the role that you know, a sports institution like the Steelers really do play in the greater community. So can you tell us a little bit about that kind of impact and what you're doing and maybe, you know, something that most, you know, the average football fan doesn't really know that's going on behind the scenes as far as the community relations aspect of the team?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will say each team in the NFL has a community relations department. So I think especially when you're thinking of football, that's not something that you think of like, oh, like each team has a direct person to work with, not only the you know, the owners, but then the players, and just the overall organization on their charitable efforts and community efforts. So my job spans from a lot of different ways. You know, number one, my main priority is working with each of our individual players on really, you know, what are their community contributions, what are things that they are very passionate about, that they want to, you know, help in Pittsburgh, and just really being able to just build their brand in the community, and how do they interface with different people. So, you know, from working with our local food banks to social justice work, just a variety of different areas. A lot of our players are very close with Children's Hospital, you know, and, you know, it could be from their mom had breast cancer. And so they're very passionate about that cause, and they want to get engaged and involved with community organizations that are in Pittsburgh and just in Western Pennsylvania. And so my job is really to seek out those organizations, and to just, you know, to learn about their work and to match them up with organizations that are doing great work in the community, and they're able to help enhance and elevate their work. And so that's always part of my job that I enjoy. I've been in community organizing in just a lot of different spaces for over 10 years. And so that's something that I'm just really passionate about, is just being able to connect our community to resources. And then, you know, in addition to that, you know, things that just happen across the league when it comes to last year, it was the NFL 100. And so we were on a mission to have over league-wide over 100 million community service hours, which when you're thinking about it is crazy.
That's a lot of community service.
It was. But, you know, as an NFL team, all of our, we were able to, you know, surpass that goal. And, you know, so it's a lot of different areas. And so, you know, for me, somebody who's born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I didn't grow up specifically in Pittsburgh, but on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, just being able to work for the Steelers, it's really a dream come true. And so, I always say in my job, there's never a dull moment.
I can imagine. And I can imagine also too, with the wide breadth of interest that probably individuals in the organization have that they have an affinity for, you probably get to work with a lot of diverse organizations as well throughout the That's got to be pretty rewarding, especially for someone who, like you said, you have over a decade in community relations experience. So that probably, I would imagine that, you're already, your network and connections really allows you to excel in what you're doing there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I think that was one of the great things when I got hired was, before I was with the Steelers, I was in women's healthcare. And then before that, I worked at the Women and Girls Foundation and did a lot of advocacy work around, making sure girls had information on if they wanted to get in office and just how do they consider government as a career path, to working on paid family leave. So being able to work with a lot of organizations around the area who just do a lot of really good work. And so, for me, like I said, it's just being able to kind of bring them all into the organization and to make our players and our ownership and our entire team aware of the great work that they do in the community.
No, that's awesome. It's cool to see that that big impact that you're making in the community. So thinking a little bit along those lines, right? Our marketing campaign right now for prospective students, future students at Cal U, is this concept of Build You, that you can come to the university with like kind of a blank slate. And as a student, you can do things in the classroom and outside the classroom to really build your skills and set you up for success later on. So thinking along that line, what maybe one skill or piece of advice that you maybe learned or developed during your time at Cal U that you kind of maybe use in your daily, work as with the Steelers, or just kind of fall back on, like what helped build you at Cal U into the person you are today?
Yeah, I think one thing is just transferable skills. I think that's one thing just in my career that's just always gone across. Being able to take one. My first job out of college was marketing, right? And I loved what I was doing, but I know that there was a piece missing for me, and so that's when I decided to move to the nonprofit space. And realizing that in nonprofits, you'll see if you're someone who's in nonprofits, a lot of the piece that's missing is marketing, right? How do you market what you do?
Sure.
How do you do storytelling? And so coming from the marketing space, being able to create an email campaign, a whole campaign that was on just storytelling around the work that we do. So just taking, I think a lot of that I learned when I was at Cal U and just in my classes is just making sure you have those transferable skills, and just taking each piece of your career and the job that you're currently in into the next one, right? I feel like each path is building you for the next step in your career. And so I feel like that's always just really important to take, whether it's, a job that you could see yourself in for like 5 or 10 years, or a job that you can only see yourself in for like maybe a year or two. There's something that you can just always learn there that will just help you along your path. And, I think something that I've been thinking of a lot, it was Dr. Spicer's class, and it was communication and gender. And at the time I was not considering, I did not go into, plan on going into women's rights work at all whatsoever. But I think through that class, I was just able to understand, there was a lot of just kind of examining and just really breaking apart a lot of communication when it came to gender for women and men. And so just certain things in that class, I remember that as when I went to the Women and Girls Foundation, it just stuck out to me so much, just his class and what we were able to just learn and just see how things are communicated to different audiences. And so even though it was funny that women's rights ended up being just a part of my career, but just seeing that even through Cal U and just that time that I spent in his class, it was just interesting to just kind of have those two comparisons and also have that story that for me to reflect on.
It's kind of funny because I think, through the sheer volume of alumni that we talk to, everybody kind of has that one class that they're like, oh man, I'm so glad that I took this, like in hindsight, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it comes back. So that's cool to hear. Let's stay in that vein. Aside from Dr. Spicer, any other favorite professors or classes that you specifically enjoyed at Cal U, or maybe some professors that you created like, longer term mentoring relationships with that you still kind of check in with now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have to say, when I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 years after I graduated, it was Dr. Spicer that I reached out to. So he was the one that I definitely just, kept up with and kept an ongoing relationship with. But I have to say, since I was basically grew up on that campus. Carolyn Tard, she was in the athletic department, and so she's basically my aunt. She really is. That's somebody that I continue to see on a regular basis. She's just amazing, and I know a lot of people just appreciate her mentorship and just the spirit that she left on that campus, and especially that her office was a safe haven for a lot of people, and even President Jones, I remember her in so many different capacities just growing up on that campus. And so she's just somebody that, I continue to just have a relationship with, and she's always followed me through my career and just always said congratulations. And so she's always just been a warm spirit and just, somebody for me to look up to. And so I'm so excited. I was so excited when she became the president at Cal U, and I'm sad to see her go, but I'm really excited for just the work that she's done there.
No, absolutely. And I think we all kind of share the same sentiment. And I think we all share the same sentiment about Miss Tard also. Like, she definitely is everyone's aunt. And if you ever had, whether you were a student athlete or an athletic work study or you volunteered, if you came across Miss Tard, man, there's no way she couldn't impact you. That's how I feel about it too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's move out of the classroom here a little bit. And, the running joke on the podcast is that this is the PG-13 version. So keeping that in mind, do you have any favorite memory and this is a hard question because you probably have 1,000 favorite memories from Cal U, but is there one that's maybe one or two that specifically stand out that you recall more fondly than some of the others?
So it's so funny. My Cal U years are completely different than the Cal U now, and even last year, like a couple of years from now. So, we always used to have parties in the union, and so I was the vice president of my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha. And so we used to have just great parties at the union. I'm not even gonna lie. And so it was always a really, really good time. And then, we just did we did game night one night in the union, and that was just a good time. There were just multiple, just organizations came out and supported. And so I feel like the work that we were able to do up there was just always fun. And we always did partying, and also at the same time too, we did a lot of community service events as well. And I believe when I think the Center for Civic Engagement, it started, I think I did like an internship out of that department, but we held like the first MLK Day of Service up there. And so it was just really good to just give back to the community. So I would say those two, being able just to have a lot of good parties in the union, and then also that as well, those are two really good memories.
That's cool. And it's cool to see that this culture that you've built around community service, and it's really cool to see that reflected in like everything that you do. So I think that's a credit to you. And I think that really contributed a lot of one of the reasons why, you were selected for the inaugural under 40 recognition last year too. So that's always cool to see. So Blayre, I want to thank you, for taking the time out. I know you're busy, and with, COVID affecting all of us still and trying to work around things. I really appreciate you being able to join us this evening.
No, absolutely.
All right, cool. So this is my favorite part of the podcast, right? I don't have to do any of the work. I get to turn it over to you. All and right. It's your time to shout out, Cal U friends, maybe where folks can follow, the community relations side of the Steelers, that kind of thing. So Blayre, go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. So, a shout out to my LSs, Annetta Walker and Christina Kenny, Jeter and Vince and Jordan and Shaquille, just kind of like the Cal U class of 2012. Man, we were just a tight knit family, and so I hope all of you are well. Miss you, love you. And I would say if you're looking for updates from the Steelers, you can follow us on Twitter. It's this Steelers CR Twitter account, and you can check out all of our updates there.
Awesome. Well, Blayre, thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate it. For being here on the Vulcan Nation. We'll continue to see you do great things in the community and with the Steelers. And so for Blayre Holmes Davis, I'm Ryan Barnhart. This is the Vulcan Nation podcast. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.